Hello everyone, my name is Saksham Dikshit and this is my channel Pentest Diaries. Today I'll make another video on the same series of lazy programming series, and this might be a long video where I'm trying to cover a lot of concepts related to the class itself. Till yet I have prepared two videos on the class object itself, where in first video I have explained you about the class and object, and then after that in the next video I have explained you about the extension part of it, where I have explained you about the instance and the class itself. So I think if you're not go through the stuff about it so far, just go for it and try to get understand first from it before proceeding further in it. I'm using a similar code in all the sections of this complete tutorials itself, but the concept which I want to convey to you, that's most important. So try to understand the concept. Don't go with the whole documentation itself just to understand like okay, section I've written this, so definitely have to pick this, I have to read this, mug up this thing. So don't go with that. Try to understand the concept, what's the purpose behind it. So my majority of time in today's lecture is just to make you understand about this, what actually the purpose of these concepts behind it, and instead of just reading the content, I will read the content also for you, not a big deal, but to make you understand with the actual one-liner stuff itself, that's far better for me to explain you with the code itself. So there are three codes which I will run for you with a few combination, few twists inside of that, and that was the reason I'm telling you this might be a long video itself, where I'm explaining everything about it. So I'll start with the first topic, which is a self and int itself, and which we call it as a constructor also in Python. So we're talking about both the things, what's the purpose of it and why we required these self. We have seen it in the previous video also at multiple places when we are preparing our method at the time of defining the instance variable itself. Everywhere I'm seeing like a self to be coming, like either before the variable name I'm putting the self dot, then the variable name, so that we call it as an instance variable. So what's the purpose of it, why we're using a self most of the time, even in case of method also we are using it. So that's everything I'll try to get it covered in this section for it. So we're talking about in Python it's a self and the int are the functional concept using defining and initializing a class instances, which is very clear about it. Now like I'm not reading the same content, I'm just, if that content is bit clear, then in that case I'm just reading that content and I will go ahead further with the next section for it, instead of just make you understand the same statement again and again. Going further with that, if I'll pick the self option itself, so self is a reference to the current instance of class. It is used to access variable and the method associated with the instance. In a class method, self allows you to refer to instance variable in the method from within the method. What it means, at the time of the class itself, whenever we are defining even instance variable or a method, then in that case we are utilizing a self keyword, and that to be within a method. That was an understanding on the self. If we're talking about the uses of the self, then in that case instance variable, and in case of methods we can utilize it in both the cases itself. In case of instance variable, self is used to define and access instance variable, and talking about the methods, then the self is used to call other methods within the same class. Okay, proceeding further with the example. If I'll talk about the example itself, I'll explain you over here itself, and even when I'm seeing the practical section for it, that time I'll try to make you understand about it, but right now also I'll make you understand about it, why we are utilizing it. So in this a bit clear about it, I'm not explaining you the whole code, I'll just go further with that section for it where it required a meaning of it. So if we're talking about the instance variable, then in that case self we have to utilize it as a prefix first. Okay, so in both the cases we are using a prefix as a self, and then we have to put the variable name and then whatever the name we just want to get it, assign it. Okay, that's a purpose of the self. And in case of method also we can utilize it. You can see we can utilize it self also. Okay, so that's the purpose of the self. Now further, if we talk about the constructor, so this is little bit different type of thing. Take example, it is a special method in Python classes known as the constructor. It is called when an instance object of the class is created. So this will be called whenever the instance object is created. in the class. Okay, that's most important. So that will be coming in the picture when the instance object of the class is created. Bit clear about it. Now the init method initialize the instance by setting up the initial value for instance variable or performing any other necessary setups also. That's not having much meaning about it, but just reading that content about it, it will be getting initialized as set up the initial value of the instances. That this will help you to initialize the instance by setting up the initial value for instance variable, like whatever the initial value of the instance variable, or performing any other necessary setup itself. We can utilize constructor, int constructor. Okay, if we're talking about the example itself, you can able to see over here itself, as we have already created the instance object for the class, then in that case we can use this keyword int. Okay, that's the purpose of it. Over here itself I have already mentioned it, like in this example, int initialize the name and the age instance variable for both dog instance. Okay, now this is the key points. Like if you're talking about the cell, what about the int? If you're talking about the self, then in that case refers to the instance calling the method. Then the second point, if you're talking about that allows access to instance variable and other methods. Talking about the third point, always the first parameter in the instance, that's we are clear about it. Like when we are making any method itself, we're talking about the function, which you call it as, at that time that self is the first keyword which you have to mention, and even at the time of defining that instance variable, we have to as a prefix itself. Then after that we have to mention the name of the variable. Now talking about the constructor int, then in that case you can see this is a special method for initializing a new instance, that's clear, called automatically when a new instance is created. Like we have discussed about it, instance object is created of the class, then automatically is get called. Okay, take self and the other parameter to set up the instance. Okay, that's also clear. Now this is the code for it. So this code I will run for you so that you can able to understand both the concept behind it. This include both the things, like it includes the self and the int constructor. I will run it and explain you about at that time only when I'm defining it. Okay, so right now I'm not explaining you, I'm just going further with the theory part. Once we going with the practical, then I'll try my best to complete both the things. Going further with it, we're talking about the class method. This is the second thing which is the most important thing in case of class itself, class method in Python. So we're talking about the class method are the method that bound to the class itself rather than to an instance of the object. So the class method are bounded to the class instead of bounded with the instance, which is instance of the class itself which we are defining it. Okay, so either it's an instance, whatever instance you are defining it, it's not get it I can say that bind with it, it's bind with the class itself. So class method always be bind with the class only, not with the instance. They can access and modify the class state that applies across all instances of the object of the class, and the class methods are defined using the class method decorator, and they can take CLS as the first parameter. It's similar like the self itself, like when we are defining that, then we are using the self in the first place. That same thing we are defining when we are talking about the class method. We are using CLS as the first parameter to refer to the class, similar to how instance method takes self as the first parameter to refer the instances. Okay, if we're talking about how we're defining it, so this is the way by which we are defining the class method. So this is a class method which I will cover up when I'm running the code for you. You can able to understand both the concept behind it, what is class method and how can we use it, both the ways. Okay, both the things I'll try to get it covered. Now going further with it, this is the output for it. If we talk about the key points about the class method, so class method versus instance method itself. Class methods use CLS to access class level data, and the methods they are called on the class itself or on instance itself. Like you can call it on the class itself or on the instance level. You can call it both the ways. You can call it a class method. Talking about the instance method, use self to access instance level data, and the methods they are called on instances of the class. Going further with that, if we talk about the class method use cases, accessing or modifying the class variables, creating factory methods that return an instance of the class, possibly with some predefined settings. That's coming under the category of the class method use cases. Now going further with the section, this is the code for it which we have to use at the time of the practical. Now coming in the last section of it, which we're talking about a class method. It's alternative also. I'll be giving it over here itself. This is also one of the code. Okay, so I'm not giving it the description once again. This is the alternative method. If we're talking about a class method as an alternative constructor in Python, so what are the things we can do it? I'll try to cover in this. Okay, so that much is the content. Let me explain you about it, what it means, like if we are using a class method as an alternative constructor. Okay, what it means. So it means the class method can be used as an alternate constructor in Python. These alternative constructors are a class method that provides different ways to create instances of the class. This can be particularly useful for initializing objects from various data sources or formats. Okay, I'm reading the same content once again for you so that you can able to, this is a normal language by which you can able to understand why and how we are utilizing a class method as an alternative constructor also. So the class method can be used as an alternative constructor in Python. These alternative constructor are class method that provides different ways to create instances of the class. Okay, different way to create an instance of the class, and this can be particularly used for initializing object from various data sources or formats. Using class method as a alternative constructor. To create alternative constructor, you define a class method with @class method. This is similar like that which we have used for the class method itself as a decorator. These method typically perform some kind of pre-processing or setup before calling the primary constructor. Okay, so primary constructor is the same, but we are utilizing a class method act as I can say that act as a constructor over here itself. That's why we are calling int as a primary constructor, but this class method we can utilize as a constructor also. So that was the reason I mentioned it. If we're talking about the example, this I'll try to get it covered at the time of the practical itself. If we're talking about the benefits of using alternate, so what's the benefit of it? That's most important. Encapsulation. So encapsulation, flexibility, clarity. So encapsulation, it runs on the way like alternative constructors can encapsulate complex initialization logic and keep it out of the main constructor. That's clear. Okay, like it will not coming inside of the int primary constructor. It have to keep it out of the main constructor, which is a int. Now talking about the flexibility, they provide different ways to create instances, making your class more flexible and easier to use with various data sources. Okay, now talking about the clarity, named constructor like from underscore birth, underscore year, and from underscore string make the code more readable and expressive, indicating exactly how the instance is being created. So clarity is also one of the things which is coming under the category of the alternative constructor, where we are defining I can say that defining it in such a way which give a sense for us, make us understand about it, what actually we're trying to get it achieve with it. So that is coming under the category. Named constructor is also one of the things where we are defining with the appropriate name by which we can able to understand the concept behind it, and like at the time when we do it, we can able to understand like what actually the purpose of this alternative constructor using a class method. Now what I'll do, I'll go to the practical section. I'll just open the Kali Linux and open the code for you so that you can able to understand that concept with the code now. So now a lot of code is over here itself. I pick only 3. If you want to run it, you can make that and you can run it, but it's a little bit difference in all the codes itself. So I do not want to run all the codes, whatever I'll just include it in my whole documentation, but I want you to just go through these 3, and then after that whatever the code I have provided, and even this is not the restricted one, you have to, whatever the code you are getting belongs to these concepts, just go it further with that, try to get it, explore it. Okay, so let me open it. Let me put the cred, and these are the three codes which we have to use it. Okay, so I'll start further with the first one. That is for what? That is for the self and the int constructor. Okay, so this is the one. So over here itself, this is the thing which you are already aware about it, right? This is the creating an instance itself. I'm trying to make the instance over here itself. So by this way, I'm defining the instance, and that instance I'll try to get it mapped with the class, function itself. Whatever the functions we have defined, a method, class method itself, which we are defining over here itself, that to be get it accessed using this way. Okay, so the instance we are creating it first, and that using that instance we're trying to get it mapped the method of the class to be over here itself. So now over here itself, this is, I'm just calling it for the dog1, that for the dog2, dog1, dog2. There are two type of, one is a speak and another one is a description itself. I'm defining it for both, and there is one is a constructor itself. This we have I'm just also including over here. This is a primary constructor, sorry, not the instructor. It's a constructor over here itself, where we are defining a self as the first parameter itself, which we have to define it. This is a basic syntax of it, where we require a self to be get defined first, and now after that we are passing two values, name and the age, that to be get it passed over here itself at the time of defining the instance. When we define the instance, this to be get it transferred. By that way itself, what is exactly is happening, we are making the value for these. Now after that, when we are calling these method using the instance object, get it mapped with a method of the class, then in that case we are getting this output. Okay, so once we get that output of dog1 and dog2, then I'll try to get it mapped for these two methods, and I'm getting the results appropriately. Let me run it. This is not a much thing, as we are already aware about the class and the object, and we are aware about the instances. I'm just telling you the main thing which we are talking about, the self and the int constructor. When we run it, so I will tell you these are the two values is get it transfer. We get two values. Then after that, when I'm just calling this method to be get it mapped, then in that case what I'll do, I'll just go for the description, and dog1 having two value as a buddy and the 3. Now going further with this section itself, you can able to see like this value I'm just get it copy, and the another value I get it copy, and I can able to return this value, and this is the thing which I am getting it on my screen. Okay, this is for the next one. If I talk about the speak, then in that case also two values to be get it transfer, and that to be get the results over here itself. This is all about the code number 1, where we're talking about the self and the int constructor. Now going further with that, the next section for it. So what we are discussing over here itself in the second code. In the second code, we are talking about the class method. So what exactly is the class method? It's, so I'm using a class method. This is we call it as a class method. Okay, so this class method we are defining inside of the class itself. It's not coming outside of it, it's coming inside of it. But at the time of defining it, like we are defining over here itself, what we are defining, you can see very clearly about it. You can able to understand like what are the things to be get defined over here itself. Okay, on the basis of that we are proceeding further with that. Okay, so at the time of defining the instance, creating instance using the factory method, okay, that is the thing we are doing. So I'll explain you with the start itself. This we are making one of the class. This is the class variable, I'm defining it. Then after that I'm making one of the constructor. Over there itself I'm defining a self as the first, and these are the things we are just defining over there itself. I'm making a counter dog.count plus equal to 1 itself. That is a counter to be get it increase. Then after that I'm going further with that, making this as a method where I'm defining these are the things to be get it printed. Then I'm making two class methods. First class method, I'm making a class method. I'm just defining with the name get underscore count, and CLS, as we discussed about it, CLS is the first parameter to be get it defined in all the class methods. So that was the reason CLS we are seeing it over here, and CLS.count we are seeing over here itself in return. Now talking about the next section for it, where I'm defining it for the another you can say that for another method, class method, and over here itself I can see CLS is one of the thing as obvious. Then we are passing two values, name underscore birth underscore year, and then after that we have to calculate the age equal to this to be get it passed, and then the value to be get it returned. We are getting the result. Now I'm defining the instance using the factory method over here itself. So this is the object which we are defining. This is the dog is the class name, and this is the one which we are defining as a class method over here itself. Whatever the value I'm passing over here itself, that to be get it passed. Okay, so that to be get it passed over here itself, and that to be get it calculated accordingly. We get that value inside of the dog1 and dog2. Then after that, what I'm supposed to do, I'll just go for printing that description along with the description. So whatever the value I'm getting stored inside of the dog1 and the dog2, now I'm going to the description section and I'll try to print both the values which we have already calculated from the bottom one, and that to be get it reflected, and we get the result. It's for 1 and 2, and then after that for the dog also I'm getting the result where I'm just fetching the details of dog.get underscore count. Let me run it. So you can able to understand with this. There are 3 things I'll try to get it print. To get it print, the first thing. So what I'm just transferring it. I'm just passing 2 things over here itself, 2021 and the body. So what I'll do over here itself, it will get copied, like as I'm using the birth here, then in that case it just get the name and the birth here itself. And now after that I'm just calculating the age. The age will be get it calculated over here itself. I'm just returning 2 values, name and the age. By this, after calculation, I'm just returning that to be get it reflected inside of the dog1. And when I'm calling dog1 with the method inside of the class method itself, or I can say that only a plain method, if I'll just call it, then in that case I get the result about it. So this is the name which we can able to see over here in the description, the name which we are seeing over here itself, and the age we are seeing it over, and the as it's a f string, then definitely whatever the statement we have mentioned inside of the f string, that to be get it printed along with the values which we are getting it for the dog1 and dog2. Okay, by that way only you get the value, and for the count one also I'm getting the same value, and as I'm printing it over here itself, that to be get it mapped. Okay, clear about it. So now what exactly we're supposed to do? So like it will increase it for twice, then that was the reason, like I have used it for the dog1 and dog2, so twice I am used it. That was the reason the dog and dot count equal to 2. So the value will be 2. Initially it was 0, then it reached the 2. So twice we are utilizing. That was the reason it will get increased by 2. And when we trying to get it print that value, we are getting the output as 2. Okay, it's clear for the third code, second code, and now going for the third code. So if I'm talking about the third code, this is the big one. Okay, where I'll try to get it explaining each and everything about it. Okay, but it's easy for you if you're able to understand the first and the second code. It's bit easy for you, but little bit things are more over here itself. Okay, I'll start with what we have to define the class. Then we have to define the int constructor over primary constructor. We have to define it. We are defining 3. I can say that class instance variable I'm defining it over here itself. Then after that there is one of the method I'm defining it over here. Then I'm defining a class method to be here itself. Then I'm defining another class method over here itself. Then I'm just defining it as a instance. So when I'm making the object instant object, it's instance object, then in that case book1, book2 and book3 are the instance object. Now what I'm supposed to do, as book is a class name, so now what I'm supposed to do, I'll simply have to pass these values, 3 values. Okay, now what I'm supposed to do, it will get it go, and then after that what you're supposed to get out of it, nothing you're getting it, as we are not calling anything over here itself. We are just making the value instead of the book1. So book1 having 3 values. Okay, it's having 3 values, that it done. Now talking about the book2. For book2 it's going to the string. So what exactly is happening over here itself, we'll try to pass the values. We are trying to pass the values, and on the basis of that, whatever the value it's get it written, like a title, author and the page, that to be get it stored inside of the book2. So taking example over here itself, we are passing brave new word, Aldous Aldous Huxley, and the third value is 311. So that is a page. These three values we're trying to get it pass inside of the string underscore class method itself. Over here itself, this have no meaning. Now just for data string itself, I'm just pushing all three things over here itself. Now data underscore string dot split, we have to split it, and then after that we are trying to return it back with the title, author, and the pages with the int. That to be get it return, it's having the value, and that to be get it utilized in the description also. When we describe it in the description, that to be get it printed using a string. Now for the third one also, it's the same thing. We are trying to get it do for the dict, and over here itself it's the same. Like I'm not returning this time, I'm not returning anything. I'll simply have to try return or not. I'm not calculating separately from the return. I'm doing inside of the return itself, I'm trying to make this value. So CLS is one of the things we have to use it as we are returning the CLS. And then data underscore dict, we have to define the title. When we have defined the author, then we have to define the pages, and that to be get a return and present to be inside of the book 3. When I am just calling this book 3 dot description, then at that time only it will return that value, and that value to be which is present inside the f string to be get it presented. So I have tried all the possibility, and this is the alternative method. So okay, what are the things we have covered over here itself? We have started with the self, then we have go for the int constructor, then we have to go for class method, then we have to go for the class method to be utilized as an alternative constructor itself. So these are everything. I'll try to get it covered with 3 separate codes for it. I know this is a lot of things to be get understood in one video itself, but if you are having a problem, try go it further with in parts. Don't go in single stretch. You can't able to understand everything about it. But with the practical section, I want you to make you understand very well about it instead of with the theory part itself. Like basically, if we understand the code, that's most important instead of just you know the concept, but you are not able to read the code, and you just understand the term, but you are not able to understand the code. So understanding the code is most important. Okay, these type of things we should require at the time of the interview or at the time when a person is asking you. But code review at the time of understanding the code of someone else, that's most important instead of doing anything else. Okay, so that's all about this stuff. I just want to get it covered in this video. If you like this video, please subscribe my channel. Thank you so much once again. Take care. Bye bye.